Good evening, everybody. It's Allie, and it's taken me quite a while to get this next card up for you, and I apologize for that. The card we'll be talking about today will be Temperance, and Temperance is number 14 in the Tarot Rider-Waite deck or the Tarot series. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about this today, and I'm going to try really hard not to take so long to get to the next one, because we are getting up there. Got a few left. So, Temperances number 14, which when added together is a 5. Temperance is defined as a word as moderation in action, thought, and feeling, or a type of restraint. The card symbolizes a person whose behavior is connected to the life one leads, more meaningful than ever before. So we're at this situation here where we're trying to bring together the spiritual and the earthly. As you can see, there are different feet that are standing on different parts. And this is the angel of temperance. One of the things that it asks you to look at in here will be the road that is on this side. There's a road that takes you through. And instead of being two pillars or two altars, it's two mountains and the sunshine behind it. Up here, we're looking at the dot that comes with being awakened and enlightened. And Temperance here is also an angel, as you can see. And on the chest of this particular angel, you see an inverted triangle. So there's a lot here to look at. And yet probably one of the most important parts of this is the middle, where the fluid is running between the two cups. So some part of this card equals spontaneity with knowledge. So it does call for us of spiritual and material as coming together and yet still in different, what they call containers. The crucial figure in the tarot intermingles both the spirit and the flesh, and the masculine and the feminine, or otherwise known as the yin and yang. And as I indicated, it is an angel. It's an angel that is winged, but there is no real sexual identity of this particular. It is more of a universal figure, not relegated to one particular sex. Psychologically, it represents inner experience that would connect the archetypal world with the unconscious. Our archetypal world is considered to be symbol and allegory, metaphor, those things that we use in our toolkit of trade when we're trying to figure out things, when we're taking things and making meaning out of them and how they come into our own lives. It's also a reminder to have faith. Jung says that angels, as archetypes, are creatures of questionable mortality, because Lucifer was a fallen angel, although this angel appears to be a very positive one. When faced with suffering, we often can be angry at life. We can be angry also with our higher spirituality. We can believe that we are being misled or that we are being forsaken. Temperance was often the virtue that showed up to defeat the wrath that occurred in the Middle Ages. An angel is depicted pouring water from one vessel to another while having one foot in the water and the other on the land. Some say that the liquid is wine and water that is being combined to dilute it so that we do not become intoxicated. Because once you're intoxicated, it's very difficult for you to be able to understand the truth of something. It also averts drunkenness. But in the Middle Age, temperance of attitude and emotion was said to be dependent on the 4 humors of the body. That would be blood, phlegm, or snot, to be quite honest, and both black and yellow bile. Any kind of imbalance or would create, especially in bile, would create some kind of a melancholy, which we would call also a depression. We could call it the dark night of the soul when we go through those periods of time. Also a black bile overload. And that's what they had these explanations for why we were feeling the way that we were feeling at the time. If these things are balanced, we are said to have a good temperament. And as you can see, the word temperance has the word temper in it. So if you balance, if all things are balanced, people would say, you're really easy to get along with, you flow better with the world, and that sort of thing. Temperance combines the elements of life, which is the personality in both our inner and outer worlds. And in the pictures, the lower cup, if you'll notice, which is over, sorry, it's backwards, is not directly aligned with the higher cup. And so this is what the analysts say is physically impossible with regard to how this would pour from one to another, that it's not really aligned correctly for it to do that it would spill. A temperate person's ability to handle problems with joy appears almost magical, because it's very hard for us to get into that space where we think to ourselves, oh, wow, I've got this really wonderful opportunity to learn from my experience, even though it's not very good. And I need to take that and, run with it and make a really good experience out of it. And that's really hard to do, because when we are having problems, one of the hardest things for us to do is to release that whole want of solving that problem immediately, because we don't want to be in that state. So it also signals, by having the road in here, a return to daily activities as well. So in other words, we must live in the natural world, the physical world, while we still can maintain our attachment and our feeling with the spiritual world. But where do we have to interact? Where do we have to work every day? Where do we have to be and live in? It's the spiritual world. So these 2 pillars, which are now the mountains, are abstract concepts that become real. And in this case, it is behaviors, not concepts, that are seen. In other words, how do I balance this life, or this spiritual and this physical world, together in order to create the reality that I want to create in the world? Temperance signifies disparate elements that join together, a blend of harmony and peace with other things that are less easy for us to deal with. The sign on the head of this angel up here, as I explained, you'll see a lot of Hindus, Buddhists have a mark on their forehead, and that is to say that this person is an awakened consciousness. Psychic energy is a thing that insists on its own conditions, but we cannot will it to make it so. It has to be done by sitting back and allowing it to come through, not pushing toward a goal, because you won't get there if you're pushing too hard. You will also notice that it's up near the crown chakra here. This particular one is between the third eye and the crown chakra, which is the growth and the tie to the spiritual. So it uses the idea that our conditions of making something happen must be allowed to flow, that there is a gradient, there is a road that we must be patient and faithful as we walk along. And we need to step out of our own way, and we need to find that balance between living in the material world and having access to that spiritual world. And we have that access to spirit as well during dream time, meditation, and any other awakened enlightenment states that we may have. We cannot reason or be logical. It's not attained by using the intellect. It is attained, as you can see, by enlightenment. And look, this particular angel is very busy looking down at what's being done, not really thinking about how it has to be done, obviously, because these two cups are very difficult to not spill anything from the way that they're held. So we have to be patient. We have to be faithful. We also must use our experience and not just believe that we know. We have to know. We don't say, yes, I think I believe in it. It is a full belief in something, in knowing something, in making that connection. We opt to rediscover ourselves and the world when we do this and we allow this to happen. And we look at it in this card through its place in eternity, not in the now. So it's a higher vision. We're looking at what is our place in this tiny speck of time that we're in and that will continue throughout eternity. The pouring of the liquid reconnects to the sacred world. It is one current, and it portends that we might be out of touch, but not completely bereft. So that if we have the feeling that we have made some strides, that we are on our pathway, that we are doing well, this card tells us that we understand that we live out of time in a world of eternals, or a mythical present that is a kind of a right, an R-I-T-E, not an R-I-G-H-T. This current allows us to remember that we aren't sometimes always aligned with what's going on. We may have a shift. We may have a feeling that we're out of touch, but we don't feel like we're so out of touch that we can't come back to our center and we can't reintegrate that which we have learned from experience. So this card is very, very important for the balancing and the understanding of those two worlds. We enter the merging of symbol and our unconscious mind, because we don't always consciously understand the symbols that we see, but we do understand them through our collective consciousness and also through our intuition and our gut. We need to find two containers so that we can live in both worlds and bring them both together when that's needed, and learn how to commingle them by trial and error. Because there may be times we feel that we cannot be true to our spiritual self because we are living in a world of judgment. At the same time, we may feel like we have to live in that world more than not. And so in order to commingle it, we need to walk our talk and live authentically in that which we believe and which we know from experience. This card also has been called the Alchemist. And I love alchemy. Alchemy was the idea that all things can be reduced to one substance, so that only the incorruptible gold would be brought forth. We often say, oh, what a great idea. That's a golden idea. That idea was gold, pure gold, pure gold. Or the angel of alchemy is Temperance. So the angel of alchemy is Temperance. We can bring forth a suitable or a desirable state by blending both of these worlds together, and understanding that even if we don't feel like we are at some point, that we don't have to go back to square one. We only have to remember that which we have already learned. This angel takes place in a realm of heavenly and earthly and connecting the two, and it's also meant to cleanse our faulty perceptions. It's the midway between our moral problems and divine illumination. But again, our process may be slow. Remember, we're going to come next to the devil. And so we do face those things. We do have, and we have to be okay with knowing that this process is slow. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes complete balance in order to make that come through. Temperance works in waters of our psyche, and there's a lot of water here. And there's water being presented in the 2 cups as well, remembering that the water is our emotional side, and it is the unconscious part of ourselves. Anytime you see water, you know that that's present. This creates a fluid discourse, which is a wonderful analogy between the words fluid and discourse, a discourse meaning a conversation. So it creates a fluid conversation. Life is a dance, but not always an ordinary or an orderly one. It follows a spiral, remembering that the spiral goes around and around and as it goes up. And it's one of the most profound symbols of the spiritual life. It submerges us into highs and lows, but it also prepares us to meet those lows and be able to take them to a higher level with our knowledge and experience and wisdom that we have gathered over our lifetime. I hope that made a lot of sense to you. Some of the words, like the word rite, a rite is a ceremony. And I believe that this is a ceremonial card, placing you with the opportunity to bring these elements together, but also to know that they can sometimes break apart and still be brought back together at another time. It isn't like you have to start again from scratch. So my blessings to you all, my love to you, and I will be back, hopefully not too much later, with the devil, which I believe I can try to get done this week. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for your interest in this series.